This is Lokesh for Fever Radio, and today we're interviewing Yasmin Javed, the mother of Fawziyah Javed, who was born in September 1989, the 4th of September 1989, and unfortunately passed away on the 2nd of September 2021. Fawziyah was a British Pakistani lawyer, murdered by her husband Kashif Anwar after he pushed her at Arthur's Seat, a cliff in Edinburgh, Scotland. And at the time of her death, Fawziyah was pregnant. She planned to divorce and raise her first child as a single parent. Kashif Anwar has since been sentenced to 20 years to life in jail for the murder of wife Fawziyah Javed. With us today is Yasmin Javed. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us and the Fever listeners about what happened with Fawziyah. Yasmin, I understand how difficult this must be.
Yeah.
I guess, could we just begin by having you share with us some memories of your daughter, of Fawziyah, before she married Kashif Anwar? What traits or qualities made her unique within your family and the community?
Yeah. Fawziyah was an amazing human being. She was kind, she was compassionate, she was a humanitarian, she wore her heart on her sleeve. Nothing was ever too much trouble for Fawziyah. She would always take time out for people. She did a lot of voluntary work. She was just an amazing young person. She would bright up her room literally. And anybody that ever met Fawziyah would never forget, even people that met her very briefly for the first time, they've actually said she left a mark on them.
And in fact, I've been doing the breakfast show here at Fever Radio for a number of years, and I remember on that fateful day in September 2021, receiving some calls from our listeners, some of them who knew Fawziyah, all commenting on how beautiful a person she was and how good a friend.
Yeah, absolutely, she was. She really looked after all her friends, her family. She was the glue that basically brought the family together.
Right. She was raised in Leeds, in Headingley,
That's
just
right.
by Hyde Park, if I'm right.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned noticing changes in Fawziyah's personality shortly after she married Kashif Anwar. Could you elaborate on what those changes were, particularly within the framework of honour-based abuse, and how they affected her interactions with friends and family?
Yeah, Fawziyah was somebody that was an extrovert, very outgoing, always smiling, chatting, a great sense of humour. But I noticed, although she was still trying to portray herself as that normal type of person that she was quite withdrawn. And I noticed some members of my family, male members, they actually said she's blocked us on her mobile. And I thought, well, that's not like Fawziyah. She would never do that. And she wasn't contacting her friends as much. And I actually asked Fawziyah about that. And she kind of like tried to, I remember when I challenged her about it, she kind of tried to play it down. But then she did open up to me about it, saying that he'd actually gone through her phone and blocked male members of the family from her phone. Yeah.
I mean, such a controlling behaviour.
Yeah.
It must have been very, very, very strange for someone who's not been affected by something like that in their life previously to suddenly fall into it. So that was just one example of many of examples of controlling behaviour.
Stealing money from her bank account while she was asleep. Yeah. He stole £12,000 from her bank account while she was asleep. And put it into his bank account. And when Fawziyah mentioned the fact that he was his behaviour, stealing the money and blocking male members of the family from her phone, she mentioned that to his parents. They were very dismissive of it. In fact, they actually said to her, "Don't tell your parents about it."
And there's a moment when I think Fawziyah is visiting you in Leeds. In the documentary which Fawziyah had recorded, where he's essentially demanding that she's not a man. She should return to the house immediately.
That's right, yeah.
Don't be that British woman, whatever that kind of it means.
Yeah.
So clearly, very controlling behaviour had come into the relationship. And that would inevitably have had effects on her personality, I guess.
Absolutely. She wasn't her normal self.
Okay. And so Fawziyah reported abuse to the police and even had your support to leave the situation.
Yeah.
From what we understand in the documentary and the interview we've done with Natasha, Fawziyah was returned to Edinburgh just because that was the only way she could see her being able to get back £12,000 that was taken from her account. Do you wish that she'd never gone back there?
Absolutely. I mean, the time that she'd come back home, she was just visiting us, and I didn't want her to go back. She was just on a visit. I just said, look, I don't want you to go back. And the police actually had said to her they couldn't do anything about that money. Although they believed her, they said that he's going to turn around and say, you gifted it to us.
Right.
So Fawziyah says, look, it's my money. She was a lawyer, very, very disciplined. I've worked very hard for that money. I'm going to go back and try and persuade him and his parents to give me that money back. So, yeah, I wish she'd never gone.
Yeah. I mean, Kashif Anwar, he met Fawziyah actually while you were with her, right? If I'm correct.
That's right, yeah.
You were in a pharmacy or in a opticians? He presented himself, I guess, as quite a presentable young man.
Absolutely, yeah. Charming, very polite, just a normal young man.
Right. And he was very aware that Fawziyah was, an outgoing, educated, motivated kind of a lady.
Absolutely.
And in fact had said that was the kind of girl that he wanted to marry.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you think changed within him that became so controlling?
I don't think anything changed in him. I think he was like that from the onset, but he was wearing a mask and the mask came off.
You think he was just intensely manipulative?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Now, within South Asian families, when, a boy and a girl are getting married, often the family will meet, will have a conversation, might even kind of agree terms and conditions, regarding the marriage. And particularly with regards to girls, the kind of wife that they can be, or the kind of things that the duties that they will carry out. Did you have any of those kind of discussions?
We had many, many conversations about this. His parents, on many, many visits, I very, very openly told them the type of person that Fawziyah was. She was a career girl. She wasn't very domesticated. She could do the basics. And she had spent much of her adult life concentrating on her studies, and they were very acceptable of that. He was, his parents were, and they actually said, look, we will teach her to do cooking. She can do the basics, that's fine. And the mother even said, look, what am I going to do all day? I don't expect her to come home after doing a full day's work as a lawyer and start cooking again. And the father even said, look, there's always plenty of food made in the fridge. She can use a microwave, can't she? So I made it absolutely crystal clear what Fawziyah, what the expectations were.
I mean, your daughter's a very successful lawyer. She's involved in charity work.
Yeah.
There's the kind of things that you'd imagine would make them feel proud to have a daughter-in-law like that.
Absolutely. And that was something before the marriage took place that they were going around telling people in the community, our son's marrying a lawyer, she's privately educated, she's an only child. And, we didn't keep anything hidden from them. It was all black and white.
We're kind of getting a bit of sense, and it does come through in the documentary, The Push, that Kashif Anwar is indeed quite a manipulative human being. What do you feel influenced his change in behaviour beyond the maybe just the nature that they had? Do you think that there's anything in terms of social media, in terms of culture, in terms of the parents that could have influenced that change?
Very much his parents, very, very much his parents. All three of them were of the same mindset. And the way he was behaving, like, for instance, when he stole the money, they not once did they actually turn around to him and say, oh, look, you shouldn't have done that, give Fawziyah back her money. They were basically turning around to Fawziyah and saying, well, don't tell your parents. And even when Fawziyah was trying to get the money back from them, they were saying things like, well, he's entitled to that money, he's married to you. And they were being very, very aggressive and defending him. So, they never once challenged his behaviour, they encouraged it.
So really we're thinking that, there should have been some parental responsibility there to step in.
Absolutely,
and say that. And also, I guess, the kind of attitude that Fawziyah faced, which seemed very patriarchal in the sense, you'd imagine that the mother would have stepped in.
No,
and said
not at all.
Not right.
In fact, I'll be totally honest with you, the mother used to effing blind and say to Fawziyah, I'm effing sick of you going on about your money.
Right.
He's entitled to that money. I'm going to, tell you as it is. That's what the mother used to say.
Wow. Oh, okay. And so, can you describe the emotional impact of Fawziyah's situation on you and your family as you witnessed her struggles and ultimately that tragic day on the 2nd of September 2021?
Oh, it's completely destroyed us. I don't even have the words to adequately describe what we're going through. Every single day is a uphill struggle. You know, she was our life, our world, our heartbeat.
She was your only daughter, and
She was my only child.
I imagine you put all your love into her.
It's just completely broken us. You know, we're not living anymore, we're just existing. And you know, when people see you, think, oh, you might be doing okay, but inside you are so broken. You're just having to pick yourself up and get on as best as you can.
It's never easy, and she meant so much to you.
She did. She was our world, our everything.
And how that could have been taken in those circumstances in that way.
Absolutely. I mean, she didn't have a bad bone in her body.
Yeah.
Not a bad bone.
So what do you feel needs to be done so that no girl faces honour-based abuse here in the UK? I know that this case in the courts hasn't been regarded, it's been regarded as a domestic abuse case rather than an honour-based abuse case. But if we do look at it as an honour-based abuse case, what do you feel we need to do here in the UK so that no other girl faces something similar?
I think there needs to be a statutory definition of honour-based abuse. I think there needs to be recognition that very, very often these type of murders, it's not just one perpetrator that's involved. There's normally more people that are involved. And, you know, in Fawziyah's case, there's been a lot of complicity from other people.
I mean, it certainly does seem the case that in this case, somebody could have stepped in at some point and said, this needs to stop, you know, this behaviour needs to stop, this attitude needs to stop, this treatment of Fawziyah needs to end.
Yeah.
And it's sad that didn't occur, and there didn't seem to be any sympathy really coming from the Anwar family around.
And there still isn't. They're still saying that Fawziyah slipped and fell. You know, the fact the world knows this was murder. He's been convicted of murder, and they're still saying Fawziyah slipped and fell.
Yeah.
They have never, ever, to this day, showed any compassion or empathy or taken any accountability about what's happened.
I mean, it's worthwhile saying, isn't it, that when Fawziyah was pushed, Kashif Anwar said that he didn't have a phone with him at the time and went looking for somebody who had a phone.
Yeah.
And it was later found out that he did have a phone and indeed called his father rather than calling 999 in the minutes after.
That's right. And not only did he have Fawziyah's phone, when he rang his father, they had a 1-minute telephone conversation. And when you think about it, a 1-minute telephone conversation under these circumstances is hell of a long time, and you don't even ring the emergency services. You ring your father, who in turn doesn't even tell Fawziyah's parents, and we find out the next morning, 10 hours later, when the police come and tell us at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Okay, in light of what happened to Fawziyah, what message would you like to share with others who may be experiencing honour-based abuse or controlling behaviour in their relationships? What would you say to them?
I would say tell somebody. Tell Carmen of Honour, tell Women's Aid. Just tell somebody, don't keep it to yourself. Get help. Get help to get out.
At the very least, like Fawziyah did, actually.
Yeah, she did.
You know, report it, even if you don't want to take it further on for prosecution, at least report it so it's been registered that some things happen.
Absolutely.
It's really, really important. Okay, and finally, how do you hope Fawziyah will be remembered within your family and community, and what steps do you plan to take to honour her memory and raise awareness about honour-based abuse? I know that you're doing some charity work in Fawziyah's name.
Yeah.
Since then, perhaps you can tell us.
Yeah, I mean, we've a charity has been incorporated called the Foria Javed Foundation, where we're hoping to give practical support to parents of homicide victims. That's been set up. And obviously we want Fawziyah to be remembered as the beautiful, genuine, kind-hearted person that she was. She was a humanitarian. She was this amazing, wonderful girl whose life was taken. It was a needless loss. This shouldn't have happened. You know, I still can't get my head round as to why has this happened. It should never have happened.
It should never have happened. Were there some key things the documentary wasn't able to cover that you feel is important, Yasmin?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously the documentary, that was just a fraction of what was happening behind the scenes. There was a lot of complicity from other members of Anwar's family. You know, a lot was happening behind the scenes, and that wasn't, obviously, it wasn't possible to cover it all in the documentary. There's that side of things. I mean, the fact is, Fawziyah was ready to leave in 2 days' time. She had, I mean, I know it did come out in the documentary, the fact that she had reported him to the police twice. She'd got voice recordings. She'd contacted divorce lawyers. Fawziyah had the full support of her parents to come back. And had he not taken her life, she would have been here today with us.
Yasmin Javed, thank you very much.
Thank you.